Welcome, everybody. Hopefully you can hear us. We are out here getting ready for our exam cram for the DP-600 exam related to Microsoft Fabric. We're so happy you can join us, and we're hoping that you are doing well. My name is Barbara Andrews, and I'm a Microsoft technical trainer for Microsoft. I work in the data space and AI space. And I live in Southern California, so a little bit outside that Australian time zone there. But me and my co-host Priyanka are very happy to be here.
Hey, hello everyone. I'm Priyanka. I'm also a technical trainer here at Microsoft, and I mostly do data and AI courses. This is one of the recent one, and I'm all excited to be here with you all, and all are happy and excited to share our knowledge on how to crack this exam. So welcome everybody.
We also
Okay,
okay, so there
there
we
it
go.
is.
Perfect. We also want everyone to say hi to our moderator, Jason Richards, who is a U.S. Navy veteran living in Houston, Texas, born in Illinois. He is one of our colleagues here and an all-around data guru. He's also published as a data scientist, and you can connect with him if you'd like with his LinkedIn, as you can also with Priyanka and I. So welcome, Jason, and he's ready to answer all the questions that you might have in our comments section.
Awesome. So, are we ready? And again, as we go live, come and say hi, share your expectations with us in the chat. What brings you in here today? Do you already know Fabric? Are you coming from Power BI background or maybe data engineering background? We would love to hear about you, right? Tell us about your skills. What do you know about Fabric? What do you want to know about Fabric? Tell us where you're joining from. Take a minute and say hi. Let us know for this session.
So I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat here saying hello from different places. I see Colorado out there. I see someone who is also in Houston. And they're saying hi to Jason and hi to us. Okay, so I see that. Another one from Texas.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And we have someone
Yeah, the
from
clothing
Montreal.
Fabric. Sydney. Nice. Dallas, Texas.
There's Auckland, New Zealand. I saw Seoul, Korea in there. A lot of highs out there. Melbourne, Canberra,
Wow.
and someone from Anaheim.
Wow, Barbara, you have a neighbor.
Yes, I'm actually in Anaheim Hills, California, so very, very close. This worked out. I know it's the next day in our Australian time zone here, but for us, it's the day before. So we're on the 8th. You guys are on the 9th. How's the future doing? That's what I want to know. We have some Kansas City, someone from the DMV. So the area there near Washington, D.C., I believe, is that where that's at? Someone says, go Disneyland. Yeah, awesome. We have someone from India. Who else do we have? Bogota. Wow, very nice. Very, very nice.
Montreal. Nice. Good, good, good. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And once again, we welcome you here to this exam cram session today. All right. I will now hand over to Barbara to talk a bit about what is this, right? The goals for today.
Yes, the goals. So what are we going to do today? What we're going to do is talk through what you can need, what you can do to prepare for the exam. We're going to start with the path of certification, and you will see the path that you can take. Some of it is optional, some of it's recommended, but we're going to talk about the path to certification. So if you'd like to pass the DP-600 exam, which I think we all do, we're going to show you the path to take. We're also going to go into our exam readiness. We have a lot of tools and resources for you to pass that exam. A lot of journeys that you can take with our Fabric career path hub that we're going to go into. And I think you're going to find that very helpful, but we're going to give you a lot of exam readiness, things to study, things to work on to get you to pass that DP-600. We also will look at the skills measured. So we're going to take a deep dive into the exam and talk about the 4 functional groups that we have that we're going to work with here for the DP-600 exam. And then we're going to look at in depth some of those topics that are covered in those 4 functional groups. Then we're going to go in and we're going to give 10 actual test questions. Can you believe it? We're going to do 10 actual test questions, and we're going to work through those to help prepare you for the exam. And then at the very end, we're going to go into resources and talk about some of the resources that we have. One of which, if you decide to take the challenge, there's a Learn Together challenge that you can take, that if you go through that Learn challenge, it's about 13 hours, you can get a 50% discount on the DP-600 exam. So we have a lot of helps for you, and there's going to be a lot of QR codes as we go through. So please get those phones ready because we're going to have almost a QR code per slide, maybe a couple with resources that you can take away today. And then,
Awesome.
yes, so, okay. So I added this slide at the last minute to let you know that this DP-600 exam is hot. And it's so hot that in beta, it was the all-time most popular exam over the last 4 years for Microsoft. So this is a very hot technology, and we are glad you were here. You are on the cutting edge of our Fabric endeavor here, and I think you're going to be you're going to be very engaged, and you're also going to think, you know what, this is a good exam to go through, and I think you're going to like it. So very, very popular, this beta exam, and we are on the cutting edge going forward with that. So, okay.
All right. All right. So are we ready now? We did see the introduction here, and are we now ready to talk about the path to the certification? So let's see first, why do you want to get certified? Why get certified, right? And for the fact that you're here, you probably are already aware, or maybe you're curious about the benefits of certification. This certification, the Fabric certification, is particularly interesting. Um, Fabric or this analytics engineering is an emerging role in the market these days. And you're already on the forefront of skilling and, of course, validating those skills here. Now, earning a Microsoft certification, let me tell you, is a globally recognized evidence of your real world skills. Believe me or not, it does showcase that your commitment, it does showcase that you're keeping pace with the rapidly changing technology. We all know technology is changing at a very rapid pace these days, right? So having this certification is something which gives you that liberty to showcase, yes, I have this skill, and it positions you for your increased efficiency, right? As you see here, 35% of the technical professionals, they say getting certified led to increased handsome income, and 26% reported promotions as well. These are the numbers from various sources, but we all know um, in our work environments, for that matter, the team leaders, they support and encourage their teams to get certified and have better performing workforce for their end, right? So, well, I mean, this is something you do want to achieve, and the fact that you're here is a great start, right? So it's a great way to break into the tech industry as well. So for those of us who are new to the industry, maybe starting their journey here, this is again an awesome thing. So I welcome you all here on this a fabric course, the fabric exam cram session, and let's see who would be the right audience for this exam, right? Who is this exam for? Over to you, Barbara.
Okay. Yeah, so just so you know, Priyanka and I are going to be switching off every other slide. So we're going to have to cue each other a little bit so we know we're not actually in the same room. So yeah. So
Yeah,
I wanted to highlight who the audience is. So let's take a look at the profile. This comes from our exam. And as you take a look, you will see that it's a lot of different data professionals, people who want to do the fabric analytics engineer position, people who might be solution architects, data engineers, data scientists, AI engineers, people also who are DBAs, or people who are maybe Power BI data analysis people. What I need to let you know is if you don't see your title or what you currently do on this list, we have a way to on-ramp everyone into Fabric that we're going to be talking about. So if you're new to the data world, we do have a route for you too. But these people that are on this list here are the target, but definitely newcomers can come in because this is at the ground floor, and this is something that I think a lot of people want to take advantage of. Now, let's say too that you do not have a Fabric account. You'll note on the QR code there on the slide that you can use that code to get your Fabric trial account. So that'll have a lot of information right there about how to do that. But we are going to move forward then and talk a bit now about what you need to have experience in to be successful. Okay, Priyanka, back to you.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So, what do we need to know for this exam, right? So, what kind of skills do I need to pass this exam? And now Fabric comes with multiple items. So to pass this exam, we expect you to have exposure to those multiple items within the Fabric environment. And maybe you want to learn the competencies within Fabric, especially if you are a Power BI professional. What you see here are some of those areas which you want to focus on. So, for example, when it comes to data modeling, uh, you want to be aware of how to design and structure your data so you could facilitate that efficient analysis. It's like creating a blueprint of your data, right? Uh, from the exam point of view, uh, along with modeling the data, this would help you understand some of the core Fabric components. So, lake houses, data warehouses, and the semantic model as well. You'd also want to know how to create those logical data models, which would typically align with your analytical requirements. Right? Then we have data transformation, which we expect from a Fabric engineer. With data transformation, the idea is that you are aware of how to convert that raw data into a usable format, whether comes to cleaning the data, aggregating it, or enriching the data, right? So you want to be able to transform that data and ensure that it's ready for that analysis. And Fabric's engineer is not going to work all alone, right? You would most of the time be collaborating. So, and that for that reason, we do want you to know around the Git-based source control, which is a kind of a version control system, and that would be here to track the changes to the files over time. It's widely used in the software development and data engineering stream. As a Fabric analytics engineer, you would typically collaborate with others and manage your analytical solutions there. So Git allows you to
Mm.
track the changes. You do want to be able to use Git and understand that source control. On the exploratory analysis, it's again the same thing. Some of these you might find overlapping there, but I do want to understand as a Fabric engineer, what is the relationship? How do I discover pattern? Right? It's like the data detective work. Uh, and also being able to formally model or report, explore those, understand, identify the potential issues, uncover any valuable insights, right? So we will see, and you when you work with Fabric, you would work with tools like notebooks, data flows, which are essential for these exploratory analytics in there, right? And we all know structured query language, which is not a new thing, right? So the structured query language is something which basically manages the relational data sources. You can retrieve, manipulate, analyze the data. Of course, you do want to know that. Along with this, DAX and PySpark would be your friend throughout. So DAX is a formula language. You use it on Power BI, you use it on other Microsoft tools. It essentially lets you create those custom calculations and aggregations. And PySpark happens to be a Python library for all that big data processing, typically using the Apache Spark engine, right? So these languages are your toolkit for working with data, be it SQL, be it DAX, be it PySpark. You would want to be familiar with all of these when you're planning for Fabric exam, right? Hopefully, this gives you an idea who the targeted audiences are, what you want to be experienced on when working with Fabric or when planning for this exam, right? Next, we see what's your path for getting certified.
So what is your path for getting certified? You can see from here that you can start out with DP-900 if you need to brush up on maybe Azure Data Fundamentals. It's actually a very good course, exam, and certification that you can work towards that will really help you get solid on what is actually offered for data inside of Azure. So that's a certification, a course, and a exam that you can work with. I have the QR code there also on the slide. And when you use your phone to pick up that QR code, that'll take you right to the DP-900 site. That, once you get to the site, will have the ability to schedule the exam, but it also has the courseware. And it also has the option there where it talks a little bit about that certification, the Azure Data Fundamental certification. So this is an optional starting point, highly recommended, especially if you're new to Azure data. Next, what you can do is move on to step number 2, which is working with the PL300. That is the certification called Power BI Data Analyst Associate. If you want to find out more about that, there is a QR code right next to it that you can use your phone to scan. And when you get inside of it, again, you'll see the courseware. You'll also see a place to schedule the exam. And you will also find out a bit more about that certification if you'd like to get that on your road to the DP-600. So both of these are optional, but they are highly recommended. And I think if you are somewhat new or maybe rusty, these might be good starting points right here. And I believe too that at both of those websites, we should have even a practice assessment there for those 2 different certifications. So it's all in one spot now. You have the courseware, you have everything right there, courseware, the link to get and schedule the exam, and more about the certification. And then after you have completed those or have the equivalent knowledge, you could consider tackling the DP-600. Now, the DP-600, I have the code for the exam in the lower middle part of the slide where it says take the exam. But to get ready for the exam, there's a couple resources that you might find handy. We will kind of flesh that out at the very end when we start going through all the resources that are there. But one of the resources that I think you're going to find critical along with this DP-600 exam cram session here is using that exam readiness zone. Now that exam readiness zone, which is right above the number 4, what you will see if you scan that QR code is it's going to take you out to about 4 videos that we have available online that will take you through every single point of what's covered in the 4 functional groups. We are going to talk about them in this exam cram, but we're not going to go in depth into each point because there's a lot of points there. So there's about 4 videos, and each of those videos is anywhere from 7 to 17 minutes. So you have some in-depth that you can go on point by point inside the 4 functional groups, the topics that will be covered on the exam. And then I also have a note here about the Fabric Career Hub, which we'll talk about at the end, which is a really an excellent one-stop shop to try to learn all you can about fabric. It has a lot of links inside of it. We'll talk about that at the end. And then in the lower left-hand corner, I have, pardon me, lower right-hand corner, I have the Microsoft Fabric Learn Together. We're going to talk about it again at the end when we get into resources, but this Learn Together right here gives you information about taking that 13-hour journey of learning fabric. And if you go through all the 13 hours and go through all the things that they ask you to do, you can get 50% off for the exam when you take it. So this is the path that you can take, or you can go directly to the DP-600 if you feel prepared now, but this is a path you could take. Okay.
Thank
Priyanka,
you,
back to you.
Barbara. Thank you. Right. So hopefully that gives an idea for this track. As she said, this is a good path, the suggested path, but no, by no means it's that you have to do all of those, but this is a good path to take care, right? Okay. Now, coming to the readiness for the exam, and Barbara did mention a couple of these elements. Let's get to it and talk a bit more about the exam readiness, meaning what do I do to prepare for DP-600? Right? Where do I get the materials? How do I access the resources? What's the best way? Right? Though each one of us will have their own ways of learning, here we try and share some of the tips in some of the resources which are generally available and are pretty helpful if you're planning this journey on DP-600. Right? So, from the exam readiness zone, you will have access to these three main materials. This is your learn exam readiness zone. I'm going to explain all of these a bit here, and you do have those QR codes. Feel free to take those, which will point you to the exact resources. You want to keep these handy when you prepare for the exams. They're very good exam preparation resources here, right? So first, let me talk a bit about these study guides out here. Now, the study guide is a document on Microsoft Learn, and the idea here is to describe what skills will be measured and what topics will be covered on the exam. So the four core objective domains that Barbara was mentioning some time back, they are all listed in this study guide. They would also do a roadmap of what to study along with a host of links to the different resources for each topic there, right? So it kind of helps you understand what to expect on the exam. And it also includes a summary of topics that the exam might cover and links to any additional resources. Um, let's do a quick view into how a study guide looks. So I'll do a quick demo onto how the study guide looks. That way you'll be better prepared. You'll understand how to jump there, right? And how to leverage that. Let's see.
So I have it open right now.
You have it open? Okay.
Yep, there we
Awesome.
go.
Good, good. Right. Thanks, Barbara. So now this is the study guide for DP-600. And as I said, the purpose here is to mention all the objective domains that you would be tested on for the exam. If we go further down on this, you would see that these are the skills measured and what each section would cover. So you see those percentages and the skills at a glance. The higher the percentage that you see there, the more number of questions you can expect from that area on the exam. So for example, if planning, implementing, and managing the solution for data analytics says 10 to 15% out of whatever the number of questions are, which would be typically between typically it happens to be between 45 to 65 questions. You could expect 10 to 15% of those from this one. And then if you further analyze this document, it gives you a fair understanding of you could see what subtopics or what core areas you want to prepare on, right? So how do you manage the data analytics environment overall? How do you plan the analytics development life cycle and so on and so forth, right? So this is, I mean, what I mean, I don't intend to go through the entire study guide, but the idea is this is a good resource to check out what are the core objectives tested for on that test. Now, how frequently should I be visiting this? When should I refer the study guide? That's one of the things that you want to ask here. So, as a general practice, my experience has been I don't often visit the study guide, but I do want to take a look at what has changed since the last update. DP-600 is a fairly new exam. It recently came out of beta, so um, this would be the first version of this document. But down the line, if you're preparing and at some point when there are revisions to the exam topics, this is where you could find that when was the exam last updated. So for that purpose, you may want to check it maybe a few days before you take the exam or a couple of hours before you take the exam. So if there is any change in the topic or the weightage of the topic, you may want to go back and review some of those sections, right? So that's the idea. I will now come back to the second asset here on the exam readiness zone on my presentation. And let's allow a second here for you to see the presentation again. Awesome. And this is for the exam prep videos, right? So the second asset that you see here are your exam prep videos. Very briefly, we got to know a few minutes back, Barbara did mention, there are these exam prep videos being recorded by some of the certified trainers. These are on-demand videos. The idea here is to offer you tips on how to best study for, in this case, DP-600. They do a quick overview of the skills measured, and the videos approximately range from anywhere from 5 to 6 minutes to 18 to 20 minutes. And these are segmented by the exam topics. So when we said there are 4 objective domains, you might have 4 exam prep videos there. I would highly recommend go and watch this once you plan to prepare for the exam. I find it useful, especially for the review purpose sometimes, right? So that's another good resource with you, the exam prep videos. The third asset that you see here is this practice tests. And guess what? These practice tests are pretty recent release. I think they got released back in February, sometime in February, right? Now, the practice tests here, they offer you a very engaging experience, and they do emulate, I don't say the very uh, similar experience, but the idea is to give you good amount of questions to practice on with each of those objective domains. This set of practice tests, the good news is it comes totally free of cost to you, is available there. You go there as many times as you want, take those practice questions. It's a bank of 50 questions each time. And the good part is if you scan this QR code, you'll get there. The good part is I can take as many attempts as I want. It also shows me on the Learn platform how did my last attempt went. So how did I do on my last attempt? And it's not stopping you from taking the next attempt if you did not do well or if you did well on the previous one. So these practice tests are a good resource. When you choose an answer there, you can check your answer then and there, and you get to know why was that answer correct or why was that answer incorrect, right? So in all means, this is a good resource because that gives you links, that gives you additional references where to find more content on. That way, these three are your good exam readiness zone assets there, right? I highly recommend that you use these three resources. The study guides, not very often, but yes, you do want to check what are the exam objectives there. Exam prep videos and practice tests, I would visit again and again. They are available to me, and it makes me happy when I review those contents, right? Okay, next, let's see what to expect on the exam for the exam.
So you are probably wondering what to expect. Now, Priyanka and I have taken quite a number of exams, so we kind of already know the ropes a bit. But if you're new to this, consider using that QR code that's right there that will take you into Explore Microsoft Exams. It actually takes you into exam duration and exam experience, and there's really a lot inside that QR code. I do want you to note too that you can use the aka.ms/explore Microsoft exams too. It'll take you to the same place as the QR code. When you take the exam is anywhere from 40 to 60 questions. Every person who takes the exam will get a different number of questions. The exam is roughly about 2 hours. We do say to plan for about 3 hours because you want to get there maybe a half an hour early. Sometimes it takes about 15 minutes or so to check in, so there could be a line. I go to a place very close to where I live, and sometimes there's a line, sometimes there isn't. So you do want to plan for that. You also, during the exam, once you've completed it, have an option to go in and work on giving some feedback to us. So you can go, so that's why we say about 180 minutes. But you know, maybe you don't take 2 hours to do the exam, maybe you don't give any feedback, but you still want to get there early. So at least plan for maybe 2.5 hours of time there. The other thing we'll need to note is on that link, it also talks about the exam question types. Now, I'm going to do a demo in just a moment here to show you some of those question types. There's a lot of them out there. It's more than just multiple choice. There's different types of multiple choice per se. And then we also have the case studies, and those are very lengthy sometimes to kind of read through them and then answer the set of questions that comes with them. And then there's another section to the exam that is usually where we give you one problem, one solution, and ask you if the solution meets the problem or not. And then once you answer yes or no and hit next, you can't go back to it. And then you're presented with the same problem again, this time with a different solution. And again, you can answer that yes, the solution meets the problem or no. And then once you answer that and hit next, you can't go back to it. And then you usually get a third question where it's the same problem, this time with a different solution. And then you might realize, oh my gosh, I think it was question number 2. So that should have been yes. So you have to prepare for that section. So there's roughly 3 sections. I don't think at this time that we have labs in our exams, although some exams will have labs where we ask you to build things. But at this point, I don't think that that's what we have on the DP-600, not saying that we won't have it in the future. So we are going to, okay, someone asked, I see someone asked about, does the DP-600 exam include real-time analytics? It should be actually a separate course that would do that. I believe it is the 603, DP-603 that would have that. It may just touch on it because I know there is a section in the curriculum for DP-600 that does do real-time analytics, so it might touch on it just a little bit. But we're about ready to go in, and I'll do a little demo on it, and then I will check that. But yes, I believe there should be potentially a question on that because it is part of the curriculum. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on over to my screen as we go in and look at the demo here. So this is our exam DP-600. You can see some of the stuff we've already gone through in here. But as I scroll down here, This is the study guide that Priyanka was showing a little earlier, and you can get into that one to kind of see it. I'll highlight that in a moment. But I'm going to go into the exam sandbox in just a bit and do a demo. Notice too, you can schedule the exam from here and get a cut price, remember 50% off. If you go through that, it's 30 days to learn it. So if you, I'll show that at the end, a resource that we have that if you go through that, that's that Learn Together. And then this shows you the skills being measured right here. And Priyanka was going through those functional groups a bit ago. And then you can see too, our curriculum is right here. So everything is in one spot. You can get the curriculum, you can schedule the exam, you can see the study guide, you can read a little bit more about this Fabric Analytics Engineer Associate. If I go into the study guide and show that just briefly here, Priyanka was talking through the functional groups. And if you want to know if real-time analytics is in here, you can do a search in the topics down here, because this shows you all the topics that are covered with that first functional group there. We're going to have questions, at least 3 questions, actually for this section, 2 questions, 2 actual test questions that we're going to go through related to this main functional group right here. And then you'll see too that you can see specifically what's being talked about. So we were mentioning that exam readiness, those videos go through all the points. They go through each and every one of these and talk to them. So you may want to get those exam readiness videos. We'll show it again at the end for resources. But I do believe you may encounter the real-time analytics, and we can kind of look through the list here and see if that's the case. So we'd have to do a search, but if you see it in here, then yeah, there's a possibility of it being covered. So I would prepare for it as it's presented in the courseware to have an idea about it. Okay, I'm going to come back to this and I'm going to go into the exam sandbox. And in this exam sandbox, it is to simulate a real exam. So we can read through a little bit about it here. I'm going to agree to that. So it's simulating a real exam, telling you you have 8 hours to take it. Now, we don't have 8 hours when we go and take it. We have about 2 hours. It might even be a little shorter because of the type of exam. I mean, it might be like 100 minutes, so it might be a little shorter than 2 hours. And it tells you what it's going to encompass. It tells you also that it's 700 points to pass the exam. Priyanka is going to talk about that on the next slide after this demo. And as you move through trying to simulate a real exam, it's telling you a little bit about what's in the exam, case studies, giving you how you can, give feedback at the end if you'd like. I'm going to hit next to this. And then from right here, it wants to know, am I ready to start? So simulating that real exam experience, which we'll be talking more about in just a bit here. I'm going to go ahead and start this demo. And it has about 10 questions in it. So am I ready to start it? You can see the time up here to run it. Again, it'll have about 100 minutes on the clock, I believe, is for this exam. If there's a possibility of there being labs, then it will be 2 hours on the clock. If there's no possibility of there being labs, it'll be 100 minutes on the clock. So a little bit shy of 2 hours there. I'm going to click on next. And you can see an example question. Now, this question is not one that you would find on DP-600. They're trying to show you the types of questions you could encounter. So as we look at this, you may get a question where it's simply multiple choice. Pick it from the list. You can, if you'd like, check it so you want to come back to it, review it later. So what happens is this is one section of the exam, multiple choice. And once you complete all the multiple choice questions in that section of the exam, it'll ask you, do you want to review? And you can go back and review it, which I usually do. And then what will happen is you can say you're done with it. And once you submit it, you can't get back into it. So if you want to review it, you can check it off to review, and then you can review it once you finish this section. You can also leave feedback. Maybe you think this question is, why are you even asking this? Why are we asking for what is your favorite sound in this DP-600 exam? You can leave us feedback at the very end. So once you finish the entire exam, it'll give you a chance to go through and give feedback. And you can do it by checking off the questions that you'd like to give feedback on. So I'm going to check some of these so that you can see how it's going to look. I'm going to hit next. And then here's another type of multiple choice question you can get. In this question, you may see check boxes. Sometimes it tells you how many to select. Oftentimes it does not. So I'm going to have to select 2. What if I just select 1 and hit next? It gives me a little warning. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that and then pick my second one. Okay, so this is another option you may see. You may also see some drag and drop. So the question's at the top, you read through that, and then you drag and drop what they gave you here on the left-hand side out to the right-hand side. And it may take a little bit to do that. They may give you more options, but you may get a drag and drop question. You can adjust this bar if you'd like. Then question number 4 is yet another example of put these in order. I find this sometimes very trying. What order are they looking for? What I would do is as you go through the DP-600 curriculum, I would check to see any place in there where they have a process in a particular order. Those are always potential test questions. So go through the curriculum, see what's there, see if there's any processes, put this in order, and take a look at how many tasks they're looking for. Now, if you don't know the answer to this question, you still should answer it, because we do not penalize you for not getting the question correct. You just don't get any points. So it's to your benefit to answer each and every question. And notice when I add all of this in, I can move these around if I'd like. So maybe I want to place the slices on the bread plate, slices of bread on the plate first. And maybe at the bottom, I want to place slices of bread at the top. I don't know, however you want to organize this, you can kind of go through, reorder these, drag them off if you don't want to use them. Maybe you made a mistake. So there's drag and drop options for the exam, all in the multiple choice section. You might also get a question where they ask you to go into the answer area and make some changes. Sometimes it will allow you to pick more than one option. There might be even a little drop down that you have to use. So can I go from tab to tab? No, but I can use the scroll bar. So make certain that you go through and you see everything that's there. We don't want to leave anything on the table. It could be that the answer that I need to select is down below. So we have that option there as another multiple choice question. And then you also may have a multiple choice question where you need to make certain to scroll in the question itself. Taking a look at the question, making certain that you see all the question. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of times the answer to the question, or the question itself, is at the very bottom. So sometimes we like to give you a lot of extra information that isn't necessarily going to be pertinent maybe to the answer to the question, and making certain that you read the very bottom. So what do I need to actually do? This is the critical part right here. So what do I need to do? This could be information that could help. Maybe it isn't information that helps, but you need to know what they're actually asking. So take a little time, read it, and then come out here and pick what server we should use for each of these scenarios. So you may have the drop down that you use to make this work too. So a lot of different types of questions that you may encounter. You could also encounter a hotspot question, which is what this is. You read the question, they want you to go to the answer area to pick the appropriate service. Notice I can choose that one. Can I choose 2? Looks like it is only 1 at a time that you can select. So you may have a hotspot question as part of your multiple choice. And we always look for the most correct answer. So when you see a list of things to choose from, which one is the most correct? And I usually go through the process of elimination to try to determine that. But the hot spot you may encounter, and this is one to be prepared for also. This one is an example of our case study. The case study is always very long and a lot of reading that may or may not, get down to the heart of what this question is asking. So I can come over here, click on Overview, read a little bit about this company. I could also go into our existing environment and find out a little bit more there, the number of users. And then I have a bunch of links here that I click on to see the existing environment. And you may ask for paper and pencil, or maybe they give you like a little whiteboard and a marker for the exam, because sometimes you want to visualize this. And in this example here, I think that would be helpful. So you look through the current environment, the problem statement, a little bit about each of these, and then you go into, notice there's a lot of tabs here. So I want to, and some of them are pretty brief, but you want to go through and make certain that you read all of it. And then this is how I approach it, is I then go back to the question, which looks like this is the exam details. So I think it's up here. Could be a little confusing to navigate this if it's new to you. When you have a case study, and you will have a section for a case study, it may be one case study, it may be two case studies, and in that case study, you may have maybe 3 questions, maybe 5 questions, 4 questions. You'll have a little handful. So the multiple choice section is actually the longest, and it will have usually, a lot more questions than the case study, which might have anywhere from 3 to 5. And again, you might have 2 case studies, but once you finish the case study section and say you're done, that's it. You can't go back to it. Once you finish your multiple choice section, same thing, and you hit submit, can't go back to it. But it gives you a lot of notes saying, hey, are you sure? Because this ends this section. And once you end it, cannot go back to it. But the case study can be helpful. And then usually what I do when I read the question, sometimes people suggest reading the question first and then going to find it out in the links on the left, finding out about the case study. I usually just go forward. I usually look at the case study question, case study overview first, and go through all the links. Then I go to the question, then I go back, and I feel more comfortable going that way. But there's other tactics you can take. So yes, the technical requirements to take the exam, but can we use a tablet to take the exam? Okay, so the technical requirements would be if you wanted to maybe take it remote, which you can do. You can take an exam online if you'd like. I have done that before. It is very nerve-wracking. What we'd have to do is we'd have to schedule the exam, say we want to take it online, and right there, it should tell you the requirements to take the exam. Now, if you want to take it online, like I said, I've taken one exam online. You have to clear off your entire desktop. They're going to want to look at the desktop below the desk. They're going to want to look at your hands, your glasses. They're going to make you turn around. They're going to want to look at the 4 corners of the room. And it's going to have to be in a room that has almost nothing in it. And they're going to watch you while you take the exam from the little camera in front of your monitor there. So it is a little unnerving. You cannot make any sudden movements as you take that exam. You need to keep your hands on the table. Do not dart your eyes quickly to the left or to the right, or even look down, because they may cancel your exam. So you have to just hands on the table, looking straight ahead and answering the questions. It's a little nerve-wracking. A lot of people took it like this during the pandemic. But keep in mind that you don't have to do it that way. And I did it in a pinch because when I went to the center, the person who could proctor it wasn't available, and I had set aside that time to take the exam. So you can do that, but just realize that that you're going to see the requirements once they get into it. I'm not certain if they'll let you take it with a tablet. So during some of the Microsoft Learn sessions on Fabric, they mentioned that they can access the Microsoft Learn materials. That is true. You can look up stuff during the exam. Exactly right. So you can access the browser. Priyanka will talk about that very shortly here. Thank you, Priyanka. You're saying that too. Yeah, she's going to talk about it. Okay. So say more about the hotspot. I don't know. The hotspot is just you click on the hotspot, and that hotspot is usually some configuration. So we need to have hands-on knowledge of working with Fabric, because if they give you an interface and ask you to do the configuration, they're going to expect that you know where that's at. So you definitely want to have some hands-on with this exam and with Fabric. That free trial account we gave out a little earlier might be very helpful. That way you can get the free trial account, I think runs for like 60 days. I would use it in the premium capacity, which would work with Fabric. There's also a trial Fabric option in there that you can choose, which also gives you premium. So you have that. Okay, so here is our case study question. And it's, oh, I forgot to, so it's giving me that warning. Oops, forgot. Okay, I have to pick something. So look for those warnings. Here's another question. These I don't really like how I have to go from tab to tab. Sometimes I will write this down just so that I have an idea about it and go back to the question, back to the exhibit. This one isn't so bad, but we do have others that might be a little harder. Going into the different tabs, taking a look to see what's there, answering the question, is it yes, is it no? There might be a whole series of options here to pick up. So keep this in mind. You may, you just need to make certain that you've checked everywhere on the screen for where it could be. And there's usually the tabs are going to be bunched up like this. Once you're done with that section, it will show you all that you've answered. If you have any unanswered, again, go back to them, because by not answering it, you're losing out on points. Remember, if you get it wrong, we don't take points away. You just don't get any points for that question. And all the questions have a different number of points, some more than others. It's the secret sauce that we have behind the scenes that is not disclosed. But yes, they're all weighted a little bit differently. And you note here that I can go back and review these. Now, usually once I've gone through all of my multiple choice, I will go back question by question and look at it again. And I have been known to make a change to it. I know there are people that say, go with your gut is correct. But sometimes maybe as I'm working through other questions, I remember, oh, I think it was something else. So I do go back through them, and you can do that from here too. I can also, once I'm done, finish this section, and then it will give me the next section. You finish that, and then it'll give you another section, that third section where you have the same problem with 3 different solutions each time. You'll also see that. So 3 sections for the exam. You have to pass each by at least 50%. So keep that in mind. And once you're done, you are done. Finish this, and then it should hopefully tabulate it. And then you see that you passed, and then have them printed out there at the center. Okay, so this was all off that DP-600 exam section right there. And all of our exams work that same way. The only thing that you don't see here that we usually put here is our practice test. So we gave the QR code. We may open that again in a bit here. It would take me a minute to find it, but I do have the practice exam somewhere in here. So I'll pull that up in a bit so you can see that. Okay, so Priyanka, I think it might be back to you.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Barbara. That was such a comprehensive explanation and all the different types of questions that Barbara was going over. You really want to take that sandbox. If I move back a bit, this was the exam demo sandbox which Barbara was showing us. And especially if you're taking a Microsoft exam for the first time, you do want to take a few minutes to familiarize yourself with the interface and know what type of questions are those and how to respond to them, right? Now, continuing on that, um, let's understand a bit about the scoring part for the exam, right? Now, you could find the entire scoring technique on aka.ms/exam scoring, or use the QR code there. But do know that the exam scores, they can range from anywhere from 0 to 1000. Each exam, and is true for this DP-600 as well, has a cut or passing score. And this score will determine if you have cracked the exam or if you need to take it again. Now, in order to pass DP-600 exam, I must achieve a score of 700, which is essentially true on all the Microsoft exams, the advanced role-based exam. So DP600 is an advanced role-based course, right? And in order to pass this role based exam, I do want to gain 700 points, 700 score in order to pass that exam. And this is a scaled score. It essentially is not equal to 70%. So the passing score is based on the knowledge skills. Sometimes when you want to demonstrate the competencies as well as the difficulty of the questions, what are asked there, that's how the score is calculated. Now, as Barbara has been saying a couple of times there, I do want to iterate that again. Points are not deducted for any incorrect answer. We do not penalize you for an incorrect answer. So we highly recommend that you make sure to answer every question on that test, right? You're not losing anything. You're just not getting points. You do not, I mean, you are losing points even if you go with your first guess or your best gut there, right? If you don't answer that, you don't get anything there. So do answer every question on that test. And then when you go over those questions set, you would see the questions are not at all trick questions. So our psychometricians said they do not trick you at all. Do read the instructions carefully. Some of the questions on the exam may have multiple choices, as Barbara was showing. They sometimes they say choose all that apply, and the other times the question says uh, this can be accomplished with two ways. Both of them are equally um, true, right? So it's a part of the solution or it's the whole solution. So you want to be able to choose what they say there. And while answering most of those multi-part questions, you will still receive a point for each correctly answered component, right? So guess, I mean, it's go with your guess. If even if you don't know the answer, you can earn all, some, or none of the points possible for that question, right? Now, again, when you pass the exam, or let's say, how do I understand that score in there? So, DP-600 is now out of beta. The beta exams, for the beta exams, you do not get the score real time then and there. You typically have to wait a couple of weeks. The exams are the results are disclosed um, after some days. But for most of the exams, and which is now true for this DP-600 as well, you will have the results within minutes of finishing that exam. And what you also get as a part of the result is a report with your exam score and a feedback on your performance, right? That performance report provides one, of course, the pass fail status. And the other thing it shows there is this bar chart. So you will see some bars on that, right? And that bar chart shows the performance on each skill area that was assessed during the exam. You would see whether the bars are short or long. Usually the shorter bars indicate weakness, longer bars shows the strength. So you could gauge your performance there. You could see how did you do on each of those areas that were tested on that exam, right? Again, do mark the questions if you do want to go back and review that. I saw a comment in the chat, should I be marking all of the review? Well, nothing's stopping you doing that, but I would typically not do that, because ultimately review would mean that I go back, review that, revise my answer, and that of course is time consuming, right? And again, do not overthink, go with your best gut. That way you will answer every question there. Right? So do answer every question. Do not leave any question unanswered. And then this thing which many of us want to know about the learn collection. So yes, you heard it right. So I mean, in our daily life, right? Or otherwise also, how many times do we not say, I'll just look it up. Let me just quickly refer this, right? And guess what? Yes, you can now access the Learn collection on your Microsoft exams. That's a big, big gift to us. Right? So, and how is it accessible? On the exam interface itself, this part here that you see, the Learn collection, this button will take you to what we call as a logged browser. You will have access to everything on learn.microsoft.com, but nothing beyond that. It, it what you see here is exactly what you will see on your exam screen. If you access this Learn collection, the screen gets split up into two areas. Right hand side you see is my Learn collection. The left hand side is my exam area. Right? Do know this is a very lucrative offer, and personally, I have leveraged this for a couple of questions on the test. Um, you do have the ability to go and search. So I don't need to remember all the syntaxes, functions, methods, parameters, and other things. Of course, Learn is there now on the exam. I can access that. But I do want to familiarize myself with the Learn collection, how to navigate to Learn, right? How to access the documentation, what to write in there to search for a specific topic. So I do want to be able to navigate and be comfortable using Learn collection. It is not going to show your profile, your Learn profile. It's only going to take you to the domain Microsoft learn.microsoft.com, right? Another point to be noted here while using the Learn collection, there is no extra time added. There is no extra time added to your exam. So if I choose to spend 15 minutes for each question on the exam, or out of those 60 questions, if I visit Learn collection for 10 questions, each time spending 15 minutes, the timer is not stopping there. The exam timer will continue as you search, Learn for whatever information you need, right? So the resources available, you have to use it the right way. Sometimes people say it's an open book exam. Yes, it's an open book exam, but you do want to know where in the book do you find that section. You don't want to flip every page of that book at that moment, right? So do take advantage of this resource. As I mentioned, familiarize yourself on how to navigate Learn. You could also search here. So the search is available on Learn. You could rely on the search, but sometimes it might be a bit time consuming. But then you cannot use Control F in that little Learn browser, right? So I'm not able to use Control F in this browser. So you need to know how to navigate, right? That's for the very good asset that you have now. This asset is available on all the advanced role-based exam. Learn collection is not accessible for the fundamentals exam, but DP-600 is not a fundamental exam. It's an advanced role-based exam, and the Learn collection is accessible there. Okay. Hopefully that clarifies some of those questions that we had from the Learn part. And the other thing, let's see. Yeah, the word exam itself gives me stress. Right? So Uh, I mean, the day of the exam can sometimes be stressful. Take your time. There's a lot going on, and you do want to know exactly what to expect on that day. It shouldn't be a surprise for you on any of those steps. You familiarize yourself with the Learn. You do your study. You take your practice assessments. You watch the video. Practice in the Fabric environment. And when you book your exam, right, we'll talk about booking the exam as well. There are two ways, as Barbara was mentioning. You could do the exam walking in or taking an appointment for the testing center, or you could be at home being proctored by someone on the webcam. Be it whatever way, you do want to check in at least 30 minutes before your scheduled exam time. The check-in process itself takes about 15 minutes. Um, Whatever mode you are doing it, you will have to present a form of identity, a government issued identity. The proctor verifies everything is in place. They validate your identity. So I am, as Barbara was mentioning, I also did some of the exams online here being watched over by the proctor over the webcam. And there is a ton of homework that you want to do if you're doing in that mode. Clearing up your desk, nothing there, no extra monitor, background's clear, right? Don't look here, don't look there. I am sometimes I do talk in a way like this, and I'm in a habit of covering my mouth sometimes while thinking, especially. And I was warned by the proctor two times, yeah, I'm not supposed to keep my hand like this. I may be talking to someone, I may be having some gestures there, right? So you have to be very careful, no noises, no pets, nothing. But yes, you could do the exams both ways. Do check in 30 minutes before your scheduled time. Thoroughly read the instructions. Sometimes exam is into sections, as we saw just now. Case study is one section. There might be a section you do not or you cannot actually go back to, right? So you do want to read those instructions carefully. Of course, you take the exam for the duration it says there. Mark, review the questions. So if you wish to mark all of them, that's up to you. But on the last screen, when you answer all the questions, when you're onto the last screen, you would get a list of everything that you have marked. And when you click that question number which you have marked, it takes you back to that question. You go there, see what you want to answer there, take off that mark, come back here, right? So you would be doing all this within that assigned exam duration. Consider few minutes before and after the exam, typically 15 to 20 minutes, which are not related to the actual exam questions, but things like initial data, after exam feedback, surveys, and things like those. So those would be additional, but the overall would be close to 3 hours, right? And then once you submit the exam, you receive the results within minutes. And yay, there you go. You celebrate what you have received. Now, if you need to retake the exam, no worries. We all are learning, right? So if you pass, well and good, go ahead, showcase it, celebrate it. If you need to retake the exam, that's fine too. The second attempt you can take after a gap of 24 hours. And I believe the gap increases for the third, fourth, and the fifth attempt. We'll share that link as well, where you can find how much is the time period you need to wait before you sit for the next attempt in there, right? So there's a lot going on. You want to be aware of the features. You want to be aware of the interface and other things. You do want to check your um, tech before the exam day, for example. So when you register for the exam, especially if you're taking the exam at home or office or wherever, not at the testing center, what is the device, what is the equipment with which you would be taking the test? The bandwidth, the camera, the audio, everything is to be tested, right? So tech check is necessary, and you would adhere to saying that this is the same setup I would be using on the actual exam day. Now, Microsoft exams are all inclusive now, so you could ask for accommodations in advance. If there is a need, um, some of us may need some extra time uh, going to different I would say characteristics. Sometimes I experience anxiety. I have a close friend who has ADHD. So for all these cases, Microsoft now provides you to request for accommodations if the need be, or maybe you want to take a personal care assistant with you during the exam. Only thing is, one, within the security standards. Second, you need to be requesting that accommodation well in advance. So it typically takes up to 15 to 20 days for this accommodation to be processed, and schedule that accommodation request. So be sure you plan ahead so we could ensure, or the testing team that can ensure that you have a positive exam experience there, right? That's one part. Now, especially with the online proctored exam, as I have mentioned earlier, and Barbara did say that, no materials, verify that your um, desk is clear. You need to show the proctor that my desk is clear, verify the testing space, left, right, front, back, top, bottom, everything. No personal belongings, no smoking, no eating, no chewing gums, anything, right? So, no external monitor, no sound, no covering the face. And one good thing about the exams now is the breaks during the exam. Um, a 5-minute break is built in your exam time that you can use anytime. Um, and I have used this honestly when I take the exam from my home, and if I do not do that in the quiet hours, typically I do the exam very early morning. But then if I don't get a slot that time, and I do this during the daytime here, very often my doorbell rings, right? And sometimes I have to answer that urgently. So I can take that 5-minute break, but then do know one, the clock will continue there while I'm on break. Second, when I come back from the break, um, I will not be able to go back to the previous questions, which I've already answered. Doesn't matter whether the section allows me to go back or not. I would not be able to answer or change the answers for the questions that I have answered already before going on break, right? Now, I can go further, of course, but I'll not be able to return back. If for any reason the exam times out during your break, again, you will be scored on what you were able to complete before the exam ended, right? So you could take breaks. You could plan for breaks if you want. You could ask for more breaks also. But do know that break time is not stopping the timer again. Okay. So those are some of the good things you do want to know for these um, exams and successfully landing onto that exam zone or the exam day there. The more you get familiar with this, the easier will be for you and less stressful it will be. So you focus mainly on the content part and not bother about all these. Okay. Hopefully, this gave an idea about what to expect, how to prepare, what are the different resources available during the exam, like the accommodations, break, learn collection, the type of questions, and other things. So now, time to go into the skills measured.
Yes, it is time for that. I just want to mention very quickly, there were a couple questions in the chat window here
Mhm.
that were pulled in for us to see. One of them was, is it possible to get a copy of the bar chart after the exam? You can, because when you complete the exam and it gives you the score, it'll say print, and you can hit print, and then as long
Yeah,
as
you get a personal copy of it. You save it. You have it on your Learn profile. You receive an email from us. You print it, save it, whatever way. So you will get your copy there. Yes.
And then the other question that we had was, could you please show how to toggle the Learn window to return to full screen? And I can show that very quickly if you switch to my monitor. And it is this button right here. It's called split screen, and that's what you can do. When you choose that option, it will allow you to pick which web pages you want to put together. And then when you're done having it split screen, you just click it one more time and it toggles it off. So it's just a toggle. Okay, so thank you for that. And then we're going to go back to the slideshow for a moment here. and we're going to talk about some of the skills being measured. And this is where we're going to go through at least 10 actual DP-600 exam questions. So what is being measured? Move the slide forward one if you wouldn't mind. And we're going to see what's being measured. Now, these are the 4 functional groups. We've mentioned them a couple times. We're going to go into each of them and give you at least right now 1 question per each of these sections. Then we're going to go on into another section where we're going to go just question after question for about another 6 questions, and we're going to do 2 per each of the ones: prepare and serve data. We're not going to do any, we're only going to do 1 question for that first section because it's only 10 to 15% of the exam. The other 3, we're going to have the question here and then 2 more questions for each section. And then I put on this slide also the study guide. If you didn't get it earlier, remember it was off the exam, you can get the QR code here. The other option is that exam readiness zone. And my goodness, I think I have it like 4, now that I'm looking at it, like 3 or 4 times in this presentation. But it's very, very important because remember that has those videos, 4 videos that go in depth into the topics for each of these sections. So that might be the next thing that you want to do right after this exam cram session. Okay, so I'm going to hand this back over to Priyanka. She's going to
Thank
start
you,
us for first
Barbara.
section.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, and this happens to be the first section out of all those things. So the first of the 4 skill groups that we have there. The first one is the knowledge and skills on the analytics engineers that they want to know. You need to plan, you need to manage a solution using Microsoft Fabric. So, as with all the skill groups, hands on practice in this area is also critical to the success of your exam. Now, if you are learning Fabric in a tenant where you do not have the admin capability, uh, go ahead, use that QR code, and we encourage you to do that. Get yourself a Fabric trial license so you familiarize yourself with all these parts of the platform that we will be needing here. The first section where we plan, implement, and manage a data analytics environment here. There are 3 main elements to it, 3 main sections to it. One, I do want to know for the planning aspect of that environment, meaning uh, you want to consider the capacity, size, features you need. So you want to know what one Fabric capacity is. You want to know what Power BI only capacity is. You need to be able to recommend which tenant level settings should be enabled or disabled for your environment, right? Not necessarily do you need the admin permissions. You'll still be able to answer the questions. Exam doesn't require that you need the admin permissions, but it's good to have that knowledge there. You want to be able to also understand on the same part things like data gateway, the types of gateways, which one to choose one, right? So whether an enterprise or a personal gateway and whatever around that area. And lastly, you do want to be able to create a custom Power BI report theme that could be used across the organization. That's for the planning aspect. When it comes to the second part here, where we see for implementing and managing a data analytics environment, this includes, along with the capacity thing, under this area, you want to be able to answer questions on things like workspace settings, sensitivity labels, right? Being able to determine what permissions to grant. So, grant the appropriate access both at the workspace item level as well as granting access using SQL, for example. So here it's expected that you'll be able to implement the rule of least privilege, meaning you ensure that the users are granted only the minimum access necessary for their task there, right? So you do want to understand all those aspects in this area. And the third area here, which talks about the development life cycle, this is the one where you want to understand the version control and deployment solutions within your workspace. So you want to be able to support CI/CD. It could be your Azure DevOps, GitHub, deployment pipelines, Power BI projects with PBIP file, which is a newer feature there, and determine their impact for downstream dependencies um, for the different fabric items, right? Lake houses, warehouses, semantic models, data flows. Also, under the management of the analytical development lifecycle, this third area here, you want to be able to know how do you create those reusable assets. So whether it is the Power BI template file, you want to know this, whether it is the Power BI data source file, PBIDS file, or the shared semantic models, right? So the idea is that you include uh, uh, all aspects around deploying and managing the semantic model from all areas there, including your XMLA endpoints over there. That's the first section on here. I mean, the first area out of those four areas here. Let's go ahead and take a poll on this first question in this series, right? So there will be a poll opened up. Go ahead, take that poll, and I will read out the question for you. There is this link on your screen. Vote for this question at https:/aka.ms/polls. Take that question. The question says, your fabric enabled workspace has several items, including a lakehouse, data flow, notebooks, and Power BI reports. If you add a user to the workspace role contributor, what will the user be able to do? Option A, create and edit the items, but not manage the workspace. Option B, manage all items with full admin rights. Option C, view all items, but not create or edit the items. What do you think? And I see many votes coming in. Most of you vote for option A, which is create and edit the items, but not manage the workspace. And I see more votes coming in there. Good. Keep going. Let me know what you think of this question. And the correct answer there is yes. So majority of you opted for A, which is the correct one. So you want to be knowing this, right? And you probably would be knowing if you're preparing for the exam or working for on this technology here. The workspace roles are mainly those admin, contributor, member, and viewer role, right? It's very tempting to grant these roles oftentimes, but you need to provide them strictly, right? So, and then when it is with fabric workspaces, there will be several items like lakehouses, warehouses, data flows, pipelines, and more. Um, if you grant workspace access, for example, users can view or edit all of those items, right? So it is important for DP-600 to understand the different ways to grant more granular permissions um, and not have everything given to everyone. In this case, if we go by the elimination or otherwise logically as well, the first option is correct. A contributor on a fabric enabled workspace will be able to view and modify everything on the workspace. They can create, edit, delete content, but they'll not be able to manage the workspace, meaning they will not be adding, removing people, including the other admins. Option number B says full admin rights. This is not correct. The contributor role does not have full admin rights, right? And option number C says view all items but not create or edit items. Um, the description of viewing the all items but not being able to edit or create items is not true for the contributor role, correct? So the correct answer here is A, right? That was the first question. Let's do another one. Ready for that?
Okay. Hey, so I'm noticing too that there is a question in the chat window that I'll answer very quickly there. DP-600, is it part of ESI? Yes, it is. And as a matter of
Yes.
fact, you can take portions of DP-600 in one-day classes that I'll talk about at the very end. Okay. And what I also want to note here is this section, prepare and serve data, is up to 45% of the exam. The other thing I want to highlight is this is chances are where you're going to get a bunch of code. You have to read and decipher which one is the correct one. So PySpark and SQL are the two big ones to focus in on. The other thing here is in this section, you want to create objects in the lake house and in the warehouse. So they're going to have you note all about what the lake house is, what the warehouse is, what shortcuts are. You'll have to know a little bit, of course, about data ingestion, file partitioning, working with our Delta Lake tables, adding columns and tables and functions and store procedures and views. It sounds all a lot, but if you go through the curriculum, I think you're going to see that a lot of this is laid out there. Now, I do have a link on this screen called Decision Guide. That decision guide, oops, go back if you would. That decision guide is the QR code to figure out whether I should or how I should transform the data. There's a lot of ways to do it. And that decision guide, if you go into it, it shows you the main ways to do transforming the data and getting the data in there. So that decision guide can be very, very helpful. But there's a decision guide also that you can reach from that one that talks about whether you should do the lake house or the warehouse. So that can be helpful too. So you need to know how to create objects in the lake house, the warehouse, what they're for. You want to know how to copy data, and that's that decision guide right there. So should I do the pipeline, the data flow, the notebook? It compares and contrasts and gives you use cases for each. You're going to want to know how to transform that data. So scrub it up, shape it. And a lot of that we discuss in PL 300, that Power BI course. But there you can work with how do I cleanse the data? How do I turn it into that star schema? What are some positives and negatives of working with the star schema and the denormalized format, the normalized format? And then when it comes to optimizing performance, I have another QR code right there that talks about optimizing it from the viewpoint of really every experience or workload inside of Fabric that you might find helpful too. So being able to analyze and resolve bottlenecks, know the Delta table file sizes and more. A lot of this information is in the study guide under this section, but this section is a fairly large one. So the question that we have for this, question number 2, is you are managing a set of data flow Gen 2 queries that are currently ingesting tables into a Fabric lakehouse. You need to ensure that the tables are optimized for direct lake connections that will be used by connected semantic models. What should you do? And there's a number of options there. A is saying apply an incremental refresh policy to the semantic model refresh. B is saying run the vacuum command. C is saying use optimize to apply V order. And D is saying use shortcuts to the lakehouse tables from the semantic model. What is your choice? Tell us in the chat. Tell us in the poll. Come out to our aka.ms/polls and tell us which one should be it. And it looks like we have a lot of votes so far for C. I'm not really seeing other votes out there except for C. I see 2 votes for our top option, working with the incremental refresh policy there. So our objective here is we need to ensure that the tables are optimized for direct lake connections. So what do we do? And it looks like even D has shown up. Use a shortcut to the lakehouse tables from the semantic model. Now, remember when we talk about direct lake, that is one that's in one lake, and you can access it from really any of the engines that run on top of Fabric. So with that in mind, it's in direct lake. We're going to connect directly to it. So if I want to optimize that, the correct answer is C. Use optimize to apply V order. And the reason that is the answer is because that option will give us lightning fast reads. So that is a good option there. You may also notice in the lower left hand corner, I have a little, and I didn't want to call it out to the very end, but I have, if you click on where it says info, I didn't want to give it away, but that little QR code right there, thank you, Priyanka, that little QR code right there, what it's going to do is it's going to take you right out to the V order, and you can find out more about it. So the other option, that incremental refresh, remember that is only working with the data set to be able to refresh and make change, pull in the changes. So that's not going to give us what we need there. And then the vacuum command, remember that's going to clean up old files. So that's not going to help us here, but helpful for maybe Apache Spark. And then using shortcuts, remember that's to be able to point to them. So I want to be able to point to where the tables are located, but that's not going to give us the optimization we're looking for. So good job with that with C. Okay, Priyanka.
All right. Over to the third section, right? So now this section should be fairly familiar, I would say, especially if you have experience building scalable semantic models in Power BI. These skills is somewhat you would find much overlapping here. As an analytics engineer, yes, you're expected to be building scalable and reusable models. So when it comes to designing the semantic model, um, along with what you might already be familiar with as how you would do in Power BI, there are few new skills that you want to understand here. Meaning, for example, when to use direct lake, um, and also some of those external tools like DAX Studio, Tabular Editor, right? Of course, you want to be able to implement a star schema for your semantic model. Now, with this Fabric environment, under this domain, you would want to familiarize yourself setting up the relationships, including the bridge tables and those many to many relationships, right? So other things remain the similar familiar ones: DAX, calculation groups, dynamic strings, parameters, composite models with aggregations for your large format data sets. And the other thing, while designing and building those semantic models that you would want to check for, are your dynamic row level security and the object level security. So RLS and OLS is something you do want to read through and practice from the exam per se. The other part for optimizing the enterprise scale semantic model. So in addition to what you might already know with your existing one, you want to further upstream in the lakehouse or the warehouse. So you want to know how to optimize the semantic model level. And so maybe, for example, you want to improve the report performance, do performance improvements in queries, visuals. And for such, again, know how to leverage those external tools of DAX Studio, tabular editor, right? Or maybe you want to improve the performance by implementing a simple incremental refresh there. So many of the sections in this area would be familiar for you. You want to add on to the new things that you find here in the Fabric environment, right? Now, let's go ahead and take another question here from this area. So again, get onto your polls and let's answer a question from this section. You are using DAX Studio to connect to and troubleshoot a Microsoft Power BI report that is performing poorly. and you need to capture the queries generated by the report. Which feature in DAX Studio should you enable? Should you enable the all queries trace? Should you enable query builder or the query plan tracing? Or the last option there is server timing trace. What would you do? And let's see how the votes are coming in. Okay. Okay. Majority of you have voted so far for number A. 67% of you. It's changing. Many of you are voting still. Some votes are going towards server timing trace and query planning tracing as well. Majority of you are on the queries, all queries trace. Okay. All right. So the correct answer here is A, right? Which most of you say. Now, the correct feature to enable in DAX Studio when you want to capture the queries generated by your Power BI report is this all queries trace. This is a feature that will allow you to capture everything that is being sent to the database, which would be essential for troubleshooting any performance issues in your report. The other options that you see here, why are those not that appropriate to do this type of performance review here? Query Builder, that is the tool that would help you construct the queries, construct maybe your DAX queries, but it essentially is not capturing the query results or queries generated by that report, right? So this is building the query. Query plan tracing, this the intention for this one is to provide insight into how the DAX engine resolves your query, which is useful for performance tuning, but it doesn't capture the query itself, right? And then the server time tracing, this is the one which provide every detailed timing information about the query being processed by the server. But again, this can help you identify the bottlenecks. It does not capture the queries. The idea is that you want to capture the queries generated by the report. So, in summary, to capture the actual queries generated by a Power BI report in DAX Studio, you would want to use all queries trace feature, right? So that, and again, we have this link here for the information if you want to go there and read more or understand more, take this QR code and find more information. The last section on this one.
So our last section of the exam, explore and analyze data, is about 25% of the exam. And you can see that part of it is going to be on performing exploratory analytics. That's things like descriptive analytics, what happened, diagnostic analytics, why it happened, prescriptive analytics, what if, and then predictive, using historical data to go forward and predict outcomes. So you're going to need to know how that works. A lot of that we talk about in PL 300. It's on the first day of PL 300. So you can actually go in and get the curriculum from there. That might be helpful to kind of fill out that section. The other part of it is going in and querying data by using SQL. Now remember, you can query the lakehouse using the SQL endpoint. You can also query using SQL the data warehouse itself, because that is our traditional warehouse there. If you want to find out a little bit more about this querying using SQL, I do have a QR code right there for you to take a look at. So let's look at the question on this. Question number 4. And it says you have a Fabric tenant that contains a workspace named Workspace 1. Workspace 1 contains a lakehouse named Lakehouse 1. You plan to use Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio to write SQL queries against Lakehouse 1. Where can you find the SQL connection string for Lakehouse 1? So is it, join us out in the poll, is it A, in the tenant settings under Microsoft Fabric? B, in the workspace settings under Azure Connections? C, in the Lakehouse settings under copy SQL connection string, or D, in the workspace settings under data connections? Which one do you think? Now, I'm going to tell you, you can answer this question very, very easily by, of course, maybe using that QR code in the lower right there, but you can also easily answer it if you've worked in Fabric. So another reason to go in and do the labs. While you're answering this question, I'm also going to bring this out. When you are in that exam DP-600, that exam that we were looking at the beginning, the link for the exam itself, the DP-600, where it talked about how to schedule the exam, and it had the curriculum, and it talked about the certification. If you go into the curriculum there's also labs. I forgot to mention that. So the labs you can access directly from the curriculum, and the curriculum is available in that exam. So the DP-600 exam, just scroll on to the very bottom where you see a list of the topics, the curriculum there. And if you go into that, you can get into the exercises and use your free trial account to get in and test things out so that you can answer this correctly. And it looks like we have. Yes, it is C. The Lakehouse settings under copy SQL connection string is it. Excellent. Okay, we are on to more questions, Priyanka, and it's
Correct. So those were one questions from each section, but let's continue our journey and we'll give you a few more practice questions here, right? Let's go ahead and see the next question in this series, and it should be there on the poll, right? This relates to the functional group where you prepare and serve the data. And this one says you have a fabric tenant that contains a lake house, and you plan to use a fabric notebook and PySpark to read the sales data and save the data as the delta table named sales. The table must be partitioned by sales year and quarter. You load the sales data to a data frame uh, named DF that contains a year column and a quarter column. Which command should you run next? Let's see. You want to be able to partition by year end sales, sales year and quarter, and you want to have the delta table named sales. What do you feel would be the right answer out of these four?
looks like the
Quickly, let
votes
me.
I was going to say, it looks like the votes are coming in a lot slower for this one.
Yeah, I know this is a bit of code kind. It might take a couple of minutes for you to read the code here and see how these are different. Right? Let's see. Okay. The correct answer on this one is the second choice here. Answer number B. And why is that correct? And why are the others incorrect? Quickly, let me tell you here. First one and second one are very similar. Both of them use DF write mode override in the format delta. There's a minor difference between the two. The first one is incomplete and will not go through correctly with the quotes not present here and the quotes not present here, right? So that's why that's out. Second one is what we want, the format delta. C and D we do not want because that's the Parquet style. So it's for the same reason, because the format it specifies as Parquet instead of delta, which is required for creating those delta tables. We'll rule out C and D. Most of the time, you would find this process of elimination works well with such types of questions in there. All right. Next question on your polls.
Okay. You have a Fabric workspace that contains a complex semantic model for a Microsoft Power BI report. You need to optimize the semantic model for analytical queries and use Denormalization to reduce the model complexity and the number of joins between tables. Which tables should you denormalize? Let's go to the polls. And what do we have? The first question, or the first answer potentially here, A, is dimension tables. So denormalize dimension tables at on the same level of granularity. Or B, fact tables at the same level of granularity. Or C, role-playing dimension tables. Or D, snowflake dimension tables. What are your votes? And it
Most
looks
of them are
like,
on the D choice. I see. 40% of the votes are on D.
yes. And it looks pretty close. Well, it was at one point between A and D.
It's
Now,
changing. It's
oh, now
changing.
it's D. Pardon me, now it's A. Dimension tables on the same level of granularity. And
Um,
then Snowflake is inching it out just by one vote right now. Oh my gosh, this is pretty close. So I think this could be a little confusing. We need to go with the most correct answer. So remember, when we denormalize, what we're doing is we're actually adding back duplication, but we're also trying to create less tables and making them more compact. So if we say dimension tables on the same level of granularity, that technically is correct, but the more specific answer, if we're going to split hairs here, is the snowflake dimension table. Remember, when you have a snowflake, it's normalized. So what are you going to do? You're going to denormalize it by putting it all together into one table. So if I had something like category, subcategory, and product, rather than having those three separate tables, I'm going to try to make them into one. So that's a little bit more specific, I believe. Fact table, remember, has your numbers you're trying to crunch. So we're not really working there on, adjusting that and denormalizing it. And then role-playing dimensions is when you have more than one relationship between two tables. And when that happens, you want to denormalize that, and you could denormalize them by creating more tables, but we were trying to reduce the number of joins and the complexity. So that is how we arrived at the snowflake dimension. And there is a link or a QR code in the bottom that you can use to get more info. Okay.
awesome. Awesome. Let's see the next question. And this time, the question on your poll is, you are developing a complex semantic model that contains more than 20 date columns. You need to confirm the date format for all the columns as quickly as possible. What should you use? Should you go for ALM toolkit, application lifecycle management toolkit, that is, or should you go for DAX Studio, or the tabular editor, or the WordPack analyzer? And let's see, what do you vote for? 4, 5, okay. Yeah. Come on, open up your polls. Vote in here, yeah. Raining votes. I see more inclination towards the tabular editor. We do have a couple of votes for DAX Studio too. Yeah, and some percent for WordPack Analyzer as well. Wow, okay, that went down. Okay, so clearly tabular editor is coming up as the popular choice, which is the correct answer, right? So essentially, tabular editor supports that semantic model modifications. Happens to be one of the external tools. You could save back these changes back to the semantic model. DAX, WordPack, these support read-only operations. And ALM toolkit is mainly used for schema comparison for semantic models. It's not essentially confirming for the date format or changing those date format, right? So out of all those 4 tools that you see here, the best way to accomplish this type of date setup is your tabular editor, as most of you feel. Awesome. Again, there is this QR code if you want to take this and study more about it. Okay. Next question here.
Okay, question 8. You are developing a Microsoft Power BI semantic model. Two tables in the data model are not connected in a physical relationship. You need to establish a virtual relationship between the tables. Which DAX function should you use? Cross filter, path, treat as, or use relationship? This could be a interesting option. So let us know what your thoughts are. So the key phrase there is you need to establish a virtual relationship. They are not connected. Um, just so you know, for the exam, you want to know the DAX functions. And these are critical ones right here. Looks like a lot of people are going for the use relationship option, followed by the treat as option, and then a couple people there for the cross filter option. We'll give it just a moment longer, but yeah, it is treat as. The keyword is virtual relationship. Virtual relationship. So treat as does that. Remember, if you use relationship, there has to be an existing relationship between the two tables that you want to use. So it's a virtual relationship for treat as. Cross filter is the direction that you want the bidirectional or the single directional cross filter to go in, and path is used for a hierarchy. So treat as for the virtual relationship. Okay, Priyanka, back to you.
Great, thank you. Number 9, again, aka.ms/polls. And this one says, you plan to analyze a lakehouse data by using a Fabric notebook and PySpark, and you load the data into the data frame running this code, which says spark.sql select star from product. You need to display the top 100 rows from the data frame. Which PySpark command should you use? Should you use A, describe df limit 100, B, df describe 100, C, df print schema 100, or D, display df limit 100? On your polls, aka.ms/polls.
I think they know, Priyanka.
Ah,
Yeah, that's good.
right. No, yeah,
Yes,
good,
I
good,
think they
good.
know.
Yeah. So df dot limit, display df dot limit. That's the correct answer. Most of you had it there.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's a PySpark method that is used to display the data frame. Others, the two of them, print schema, for example, is incorrect because that we use to print the schema of the data frame and not to display the rows. Describe is also incorrect because that would make a call to describe the method with an argument, which is not the valid use of the method here. And again, by the elimination, if I go, the other describe that you have is incorrect because that generates a descriptive statistics of the data frame, the first one here. Awesome, good job.
Okay.
Last question.
So the last question is a doozy, very easy, I hope. You have a Microsoft Power BI report that contains two metrics named two metrics named starting balance and ending balance. Additional fields are used for the customer segment. You need to recommend a visual to display the value breakdown between the starting and ending balance of each customer segment. Which visual should you use? First off, you can pick ribbon chart, stacked bar chart, tree map, or waterfall chart. What is your choice? I'm going to tell you, you need to know the visuals and what they can be used for. So this is a really good test question, and there is only one answer to it. It looks like we have a runaway with the waterfall chart, and yes, it is the waterfall chart.
Good job.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we have just a little bit more to go through here.
Awesome. Yeah, and wonderful responses here on this set of 10 questions. I hope you enjoyed this section on the questions where uh, hopefully this gave you an idea about how to prepare, what to expect, and now where to find more resources, right? So at the towards this section, the intention is to leave you with some more resources so you could prepare well, leverage everything that's there with you. One of the main things that you do want to check out is this Fabric Career Hub. we highly recommend you take with you this QR code or this link, aka.ms/fabric career hub. What this is, it's a comprehensive web portal there, and this is the one where you would find all things fabric. So you would find, let me, I think I have a screenshot here. Yeah, going on this one, right? So you would see that this has all the fabric related resources. You do have the challenge, the skills challenge, where you would be able to complete the learn module. You complete all that learn collection, you earn yourself a certification discount, and go ahead and take that exam with a discounted price. You come here, join for these exam cram sessions, and that way you would be able to prepare more for these. So everything fabric, your role guidance, where you fit into this whole process, other things around preparation, taking the challenge, learn together, prepare for the test, all goes on that career hub. And hence, that's the reason we encourage you to check this out, aka.ms/career hub. We are on to this part, step number 3 in this session. But if you are wondering how come this part and maybe you have missed the other two, it's not too late. Join the cloud challenge, learn together with those learn live sessions by the experts, and that would prepare you for the content part. We are here for the exam cram part, right? And then of course we did say for the practice test and scheduling the exam. So career hub for fabric is their comprehensive learning journey, especially to help you with career paths with Microsoft Fabric. Okay, the next one here, and this is the one I was mentioning on this one, um, is the discount one. Barbara, you want to take this one?
Yes, yes. And we're down to our last 4 minutes. So what I want to mention is take note of the QR code here or the AKA address up top. This is the one we talked about from the very beginning, that if you take that Cloud Skills Challenge for Fabric Analytics Engineer, you can get a 50% discount. Remember, this runs for about 13 hours, but if you go through it, you can get yourself well prepared for the exam, but also 50% discount. And then the next screen. This is our Microsoft Learn Together. These are a list of pre-recorded videos that talk about critical topics in Fabric. So this is also a treasure trove of learning with live sessions, but some of them are already recorded, and it takes you through some of the basic stuff. We have study tips too. I think we've hit a lot of these.
Yes,
Let me hit
absolutely.
that next
Mhm.
slide real quick because this
Okay,
is something
right.
I want to
Yeah,
highlight.
yeah.
We have applied skills credentials. Maybe you're here and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming. I don't think I am ready to take the DP-600, but maybe you're ready to take a little baby step with our new applied skills credential. There's a QR code in the top that will take you to all of the applied skills credentials that we have. And instead of being a certification where it covers a role, the credentials handle a subset of skills. So you could take either the implement a lakehouse in Microsoft Fabric, or you could take the implement a data warehouse in Microsoft Fabric. These are subtopics within the DP-600. You can take the applied skills credential online. It's a 2-hour free exam. And if you don't pass it the first time, you can take it again in 24 hours and keep taking it till you pass it. But that credential is essentially a hands-on lab where you have direction on what they want you to create. And then what they do is they have you build stuff. So if you feel like you were really successful doing the labs from the courseware, try your hand right here. And we have plenty coming down the road. There's probably about 21 applied skills credentials right now. Okay, so we're wrapping it up, and we want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We wish you a very happy journey on your DP-600 journey to the fabric analytics engineer. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Let us know when you crack the exam. How does your preparation go? We are glad to be here with you. Hopefully, you found the session fruitful. So, thank you once again. Thank you for joining us here. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.